In this lesson, we'll learn how to create a grid for our poster layout inside InDesign. Okay, so at this point, we're ready to go ahead and work on a little mini project that is really layout centered. So we'll start this mini project just like the other ones, and let me go ahead and show you kind of the design brief that I worked up for this particular project. Now, I'm just calling the client XYZ Travel, and we're going to say that they need a series of posters to promote their tours to Italy. So again, just like with any other design project, you'll come in here and define your problem, define your objectives for this project, do some research, and in this case, probably research things like what potential Italian tourists want to see, what speaks to them. Also, maybe research stylistic direction for the posters. Also, obviously, going to need to know how many posters we'll be making, but for this example, we'll just throw together one. So now, again, doing brainstorming for a layout type of project. Again, I'm going to start with some kind of sketches, word lists, things like that. Let me just go ahead and show you some really quick sketches that I did for this particular layout. Now, these are obviously very rough thumbnails, and what I'm thinking more for this project is that we'll use a primary photograph to basically emphasize a piece of art or historical a historical piece of Italy, essentially, in each poster. And I'm looking here, and let me just go ahead and grab the move tool so I can kind of point to you in these thumbnails. So you may notice that I've got kind of these boxes with an X drawn in them. This is how I indicate in a thumbnail where I'm planning on putting type and text. So you can see here in this one, I've got a photograph kind of nested in the lower left corner. We've got a vertical box here, horizontal, and another vertical. Over here, we're all horizontal. And then over here, I've got everything aligned in columns. So I think that's the thumbnail. I'm going to go ahead and begin building on the InDesign side of things. So let's go ahead and jump back over to InDesign, and let me just minimize a few of these things. And you want to check out this Lesson 10 Begin file. I've gone ahead and created just the empty page for you. Now, in this case, I'm going to go ahead and set up a column grid for this particular poster. And the way I'd do that is I'd come up here to Layout and go to Margins and Columns. And you'll get this dialog here where you can set the size of the margins for the document. You can see this purple line indicates those margins as it is right now. So I've got that set at a 1/2 inch margin. You can lock those together with this little button right here, or you can unlock them and set them each to different sizes. So this is where I'm going to go ahead and set my columns here. So let me go ahead and bump this up, and the sketch had 4 columns in it, so that's what I'm going to use. Now this gutter size right here is the spacing between the columns. You can see right in here. So we'll go ahead and set that to about 1/8 of an inch and hit OK. Okay, great. So we've got our column grid laid out. Now, if we were going to set up something like a modular grid, I'd probably do that just a little bit differently. Let me come in here and jump up to the same drop-down menu and show you this Create Guides option. So with a modular grid, I would be creating that with what's known as guides in InDesign. And you can pull ruler guides right out from the rulers using your selection tool. But you can also place them in custom spots using this Create Guides dialog here. So if I wanted to do a modular grid, let's say we wanted it to have 4 columns and maybe 4 rows, then I'd come in here and I'd set my rows, set my columns, just like so. And we can either fit these into the existing margins, or we can fit them into the page. So you can see how they shifted just a little bit based on the edge of the page rather than the margins I have set. So let me go ahead and just hit OK on that, and we'll zoom in. And you can see we've laid these small cyan lines on top of the grid that we already had. Now, again, we're not going to be using a modular grid, so I'm going to hit the Undo button, which is Control-Z in InDesign. And let's go ahead and drop in some design elements here. So now you want to check your referenced file folder for this image. But if we go to File and choose Place, and you browse to that referenced files folder, we'll scroll down in here until we find statue.psd. And when we locate that, let's go ahead and just hit the Open button. And you'll see here that InDesign loads our cursor up with a preview of that image. Now, we could come in here and just click anywhere we want. And you'll see that InDesign will drop this in, but obviously that image is way too big. So let me undo that again so that I've got my cursor loaded with that image. And I'm just going to come in here and click and drag a frame. So in InDesign, everything gets loaded into frames. And you can kind of picture that sort of like a picture frame. A picture frame holds a painting or a photograph or some kind of an image. A frame in InDesign can hold a picture like this one. It can hold text. It can hold any number of different things. Now, we haven't actually dropped this image into InDesign in its full size, if you will. We have actually done what's known as creating a link to the image. And you can see that link right here. So basically, InDesign will reach out and link to different files that you place into your document. So in this case, it's an image, but it could also be a Photoshop file. It could be an Illustrator file. It could be any number of different types of assets that you're using in your design. So now we've got this one dropped in here. I'm going to go ahead and shrink that down just a little bit. So notice if I just click and drag this handle, we're actually cropping in on the image. So instead of doing that, let's go ahead and hold down Control and Shift while we drag that in. And I'm going to go ahead and drop it right about there. That looks pretty good. Now, at this point, what I'd like to do is I'd like to go ahead and bring in some type. Now, typically when you're working on an InDesign project, you're going to have content supplied to you from your client. In this case, we've made up the client, so we'll just go ahead and bring in the word Italy. And I'm thinking about lining it up on its side right here. So we've got all these vertical elements, basically looking at leading the viewer's eye from this top left-hand corner. Maybe they could catch this text and then maybe follow some other supporting elements down here and kind of run in this type of pattern right here. So let's come in here and grab our type tool. It's the keyboard shortcut T, and it's right here. And I'll just come over here off of my page and draw a nice big text frame. And let's go ahead and type in Italy. And I'll just go ahead and enlarge that. I'm holding down the Shift key while I'm clicking that up arrow there so I can go at larger increments. Now, I'm going to use a typeface for this that I'm not going to be able to include in your project files, but I will go ahead and include a text file called fonts.txt in your referenced files folder. So you'll have a link to this font. You can download it. It's actually a free font. It's called Bebas Neue. There we go. And we'll grab my Move tool again and just kind of move this over. And I'm actually going to kind of rotate this into place. Now when I rotate this, I want to hold the Shift key, just like so. And notice that my type controls disappeared out of my control panel up here. So if I quickly access the type tool again by hitting T, I can get to those again. Or we could always open up the type or the character panel if we wanted to modify this text frame. So I'm going to increase the size of that, and I'm also going to increase the tracking just like so, to space those letter forms out a little bit more. And the tracking is essentially the space between each of the letters in that frame. And I'm going to go ahead and hit the W key to jump into preview mode so we can kind of see what that looks like. And I'm liking the look of that. I think that's pretty good. Let me come over here and maybe bump that down a bit more, maybe around 100. And then we can come in and kind of move that up just a little bit. All right, great. So we've got that text placed. Now, when it comes to the rest of this design, honestly, we don't have content because we're working with on a project that is not for a real client. So what you can do at this point is do what's known as sort of wireframing the design up. Now, knowing that maybe say we have different cities that the tour goes on, maybe we could come over here and use our frame tool, which is this tool with the X through it, with the square. We could come in here and maybe drag out a frame like so. And we'll come over here to my swatches panel and just give it a black color. You don't want to use registration. Always use black, never use registration for anything. So we've got a black color assigned to that particular square here. Now, I think it's competing a little bit, so I'm going to drop the tint of that square down to about 15% or so. So maybe we have some information right there. jump back into preview mode, and I want to copy this by holding down the Alt key and dragging it with my Move tool. And you can see here that I'm getting these little guides that are appearing. You can see they're locking to things. These are called Smart Guides, and you can turn those on or off under the View drop-down, and right here under Grids and Guides, and then Smart Guides. That's just there to help you align things here inside of InDesign. So I'm going to go ahead and drag a few more of these out. Something like so. If we bring those down sort of like that. Now, notice when I'm selecting those, I'm selecting more than just those. So I want to shift-click on the things that I don't want, because I want to transform the size of these a little bit, maybe bring them in some. Maybe we have some information there. We'll drag one of these down. Maybe we put some information here. And maybe we can come in and put a little bit more information right here. So again, just planning for the content that's going to go inside this poster design. So if we hit the W key, we can see we have this nice rhythm of different design elements. Now, they're just boxes right now, but eventually these will be type and other small icons or graphics. So again, leading the viewer's eye in a kind of a circular motion here as it enters the page from the top left-hand corner. All right, great. So with that, in this lesson, we have learned how to go about beginning a layout-based design project.